your reaction to this move by the NBA. Not just the move, but the reason why it made the move. It says, well, the emergency rule in Rivers State. That's the excuse. Is it a justifiable one? Now the businesses are suffering for it as it stands. Is it a justifiable reason? Let us know what your thoughts are on Facebook at Nigeria Info 92.3 PH, and then also on YouTube, Nigeria Info PH, on X, Nigeria Info PH. Those are the social media platforms. We'll now go over to my guest, Mr. CHOKO, who's on the line. Mr. CHOKO, good morning to you.
Good morning, my dear brother Ifeami Andrew. Good morning to Rivers people.
So are you preparing for Enugu now?
My dear, we do not have another option other than to dust our bags and luggage for the 2025 annual general conference in Enugu. I think it's the best decision NBA has in recent time made.
Why do you say that? Because
we'll talk about
Okay, I think we're having interferences with the service provider there. I will just try to reconnect. Perhaps then it would get better service there. But he says just now he would consider it one of the best decisions of the NBA in recent times. Some will argue, how so? Why? He thinks it is the best decision. We'll find out. But let's get your thoughts. We'll take your comments on Facebook. We'll also open the phone lines and get your thoughts on the show this morning. I'm sure plenty of us would have a lot to say, especially those that still blame the judiciary to some degree for how things played out in Rivers State over the past couple of months. And even how things have been playing out in the country for some time now. Yes, Mr. CHOKO.
Yes, good morning. Sorry, I think we lost
network. Yes.
Sorry. Yes.
All right, so go on. I was asking, you said it's one of the best decisions by the NBA, and I'm like, how so?
Well, I said this even though I may want to begin by saying that I received the devastating news last night. I call it devastating because I know that directly or indirectly, a lot of businesses in Rivers State will have been affected.
Already, they are. Hoteliers especially.
Of course, hoteliers. I have a friend, even though I'm not up to that yet, I have a friend of mine who, as of today, had actually received over 24 million naira for persons who had earlier booked on for the 2025 annual general conference. And as a matter of fact, he may have to return or refund all these monies. But the point is that we must have it at the back of our minds that NBA is the primary custodian of the Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria. They are the protectors of the law. They must at all times guide jealously the Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria. So I listen to some fraction of persons who argue that NBA is becoming a bit more political in the light of the fact that the argument as to whether or not the NBA conference should be moved from Rivers State in view of what is politically in display in Rivers State. A lot of people come out to argue that, yes, NBA is political. I said to these persons, they are not correct. The laws are there, even though I may want to say from the threshold that, yes, all of us have said that the declaration of state of emergency in a state like Rivers State, considering the circumstances, the evidences, and the facts on ground, vis-a-vis the presidential declaration and the facts too, which were actually availed to us by the president. All of us have come out in one voice to say the declaration, to the best of our knowledge, is illegal. And to the extent to which we know, shouldn't have been made in the first place. Of course, look at what is happening in Plateau State. Look at what is happening in Borno State. There is, even in Edo State, there has not been such declaration. So why should it be in Rivers State? And then we look at it. If Rivers State or NBA, for instance, if NBA should go ahead to host our annual general conference in Port Harcourt, what it means is that we are indirectly giving subscription, a subtle agreement to the declaration of state of emergency in a state where such thing ought not to have been declared in the first place. So what MB has to do, having issued a statement in this regard before, to the extent that they had come out to say that declaration is illegal, what they need to do is to be more practical about it. And this is what exactly they have done by saying we cannot come to a state where there is no democratic rule. We cannot come to a state where there is a one-man show. We cannot come to a state where the body of law and rules are disregarded. So what they needed to do is the decision they have taken by moving the MBA conference to a state that we think it's more democratic, that we think it's more hospitable to us. Because the truth of the matter is that
hold on to that truth. Hold on to that truth, Mr. Choko. Let's just take a short commercial, and then you tell us the truth.
Okay.
Nigeria Info will be right back.
8 is what the time is. Good morning. The conversation continues here. My name is Ifeyemi Andrew. And the NBA made that shocking announcement relocating the venue for its global annual conference to Enugu. It was initially scheduled to hold in Port Harcourt, Rivers State, but then its reasons were simple. It says, well, at the moment, Rivers State is undemocratic, and so it has to go to where it feels still practices democracy. Well, the question then would be, if we are undemocratic in Rivers State, and what form of government is on ground at the moment? Because, I mean, we cannot say it's a military rule, can we? So what do we have? Mr. CHOKO, good morning.
Yes.
Again, thank you.
Good morning again. Yes.
All right. So before we went on the break, you wanted to tell us the truth about something. And I was like, hold on to that truth. You tell it to us.
Okay. So if I can still remember, like I did say, the truth of the matter remains that you do not expect a man that is a protector of the law, who had come out glaringly to say that there is an infraction by virtue of this declaration, to at the same time subscribe to the whims and caprices of these dictators by moving our members to sit on a conference in that state. For me, it would be the wrongest thing, and it will mean a direct or indirect subscription to this decision of the presidency. So I feel at this material time that the decision that NBA has taken is the best one, if not for anything, to show that they are not in consonance, they are not in agreement with the decision of the presidency. Of course, a lot of people are saying that, yes, because the sitting governor is no longer there, NBA does not have money or may not have money to move on with her conference. But this is an indication to the fact that whether or not the governor or the sitting governor or the sole administrator should be willing at all times to sponsor the NBA conference, there are other governors or states that are at the same time willing to do equally or more than what the sitting governor would have done, or what the former suspended governor would have done for the NBA. So for me, it is the best decision, but let us look at it too a bit. We have to be a bit more practical in the light of the fact that this is something that would have boosted businesses and the economy of Rivers State. And for the interest of a section of its selfish persons, this opportunity today has been lost. And before this time, we had a practical thing that has been in play. In recent time, NBA had been hosting her conferences in 3 major political zones, which is the North, South, and West. The West takes it to Lagos, the South takes it to Port Harcourt, and the North takes it to Abuja. Today, we have given an indication. Rivers people have sent a message that apart from Rivers, there is also another state that motivates members of the Nigerian Bar Association, which is the largest association in Africa. So what it means is that we have denied Rivers people the opportunity of hosting one. We have equally denied indigenes of Rivers State the opportunity of making the profit, which would have inured them by virtue of this conference.
Okay.
Today, for selfish interest, yes.
Mr. CHOKO, let's hold it. It there. You had said that the NBA has said that Rivers State is not practicing democracy, or it's not a democratic state at the moment. So what are we practicing? Yes. That's one. Two. Hold on. Two would then be what you're saying. If many would blame the NBA and members of the NBA, in fact, I'll just say the judiciary, largely for the situation in Rivers State. And I don't know if you heard when former President Olusegun Obasanjo talked about how to be a president in this country, where he clearly wrote, it was a message he sent to the popular comedian Ali Baba. And he also talked about how you need to have judges on retainership. So
yes,
if these things are being said and what's happening, doesn't that also mean that the NBA cannot rescue itself from the situation and say, oh, it's undemocratic, as though it doesn't have a role it could have played in that situation, like many Rivers people would say?
Okay, I will answer your questions if I got you very clearly. The first one, if we look at this, to determine whether what we are practicing in Rivers State is a military rule, a dictatorial rule, or a democratic rule, it will be defined in the Constitution. If we look at Section 5 of the Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria, it says that the state the executive arm of the government shall be manned by an elected, a democratically elected executive governor of that state. What it means is that the powers of the executive arm of the government in each of the states is vested in a democratically elected governor of that particular state. For instance, in River State. Now, anything that moves away or shifts away from that particular prescription of the law is no longer a democratic rule, because it means the vehicle that brought that person in is not a political vehicle. It's not a party system that brought the sole administrator in. It is a appointorial process. And the man they brought in, of course, all of us know, is a military man in a civilian uniform. So all his antecedents, all his record, all his trajectories are hovering around or within the military uniform. So all of us are in agreement with that. So now, if we move forward a bit to the second question, which is whether or not the NBA should have played a better role. Of course, I had come out openly and brazenly a litany of times to argue that part of the democratic problems we have in this state is the appointorial system of judges, where the NBA and members of the NBA is not given primary responsibility to determine who becomes or who does not become a judge. Look at what happened in recent time in River State. We saw a system that allowed almost a particular person or community to produce judges in River State High Court, or one person determining who becomes a judge in River State. So what it means is that at all times, the person goes to the courtroom with a case file or a problem. The problem will certainly be solved because the appointer at that material time had advanced you with a problem. You cannot shake your head. So for me, it is not just a problem that is confronting just the NBA. Of course, you know that there is another body that also regulates the bench, which is members of the judges, the justices of the Court of Appeal, and the justices of the Supreme Court. But the question is, which is the NJC and then the State Judicial Council? The question we should ask ourselves is that, are these bodies, regulatory bodies, in at all times play the primary responsibility? But the question or the answer is, they are unwilling at all times. They have been unwilling to perform their primary responsibility because of political patronage. You see,
so doesn't this you just said now defeat the excuse of the NBA? Because it doesn't really, like, you know that the problem is coming from some of those within you, and then you are still saying, oh, it's undemocratic.
No, let me tell you why you may not overburden the NBA with that responsibility. You should, of course, I know that people who are not within the family may not appreciate this fact. The point is that the Nigerian Bar Association attends to the responsibility of disciplinary measures that comes to members of the bar. The bench is not a member of the bar. That is what people don't know. A judge is not a member of the NBA. A judge's disciplinary action, where such a person where such a judge commits an act of misconduct, is taken to the NJC. So what the lawyers do, which is the MBA, members of the MBA do, is that in the event where you perceive any irregularity or misconduct of a court, which is the judge, you make a petition to the NJC that determines the acts of that particular court or judge. Now the question is that the NJC as an independent body is romancing to the politically. You see a case where the minister of FCD, for instance, or the governor of Gombe, the governor of Practitioner State, governor of Akwa Ibom, is romancing in a particular party. By right, it ought not to be so. A judge ought to be independent. A judge ought not to be seen. What I was taught is that a judge should only be heard of things. But today we have a different system that allows the judge, which is the court, to be seen, to be played, to be eaten with, to be with. So that is what is creating the cacophony in each of the states in Nigeria, and then dampening the spirit of a democratic system like we have today in River State. The court are unwilling to do or to dispense their basic responsibilities. And at the same time, of course, you know, the NJC is a formation of both the judges and then other retired members, or other retired judges, and then some senior members at the bar. So it becomes a problem in solving the issues that we have today.
That said, we need to clarify one more thing before we go to the calls. You have said that Well, the leadership we have in the state now, it's not one that is in tandem with Section 5, if I'm correct, of the Nigerian Constitution. Yes. If that is the case, why then do we worry about the activities of that government when we see that okay, there's a state of emergency, and many have said because the state of emergency that has brought about the sole administrator, the way he operates might not be totally in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. Would the Constitution have been suspended when there's a state of emergency?
Well, you know that the Constitution, of course, by the appointment of the sole administrator, if you watch very carefully, they were tactical about it. They said the judicial arm is not suspended, and then that the legislative arm is suspended, and then the executive arm is suspended. What it means is that if, of course, you know that the principle of majority is to the fact that if you have 3 and 2 are gone, one cannot have its way. Of course, you know. So even though you have abandoned the judicial arm of the government, the 2 other major playing organs of the government is being suspended. So what it means practically is that what we have.
Hello, Mr. Choko. Can you take that again? You said what we have now is what?
What we have today in Rivers is completely a military rule because democratic, of course, you know that democratic principles predict or determine certain steps that must be taken for approval of certain issues too or acts. For instance, if the sole administrator is to appoint heads of agencies or commissioners, for instance, there is a particular organ of the government that should screen such persons. But today, what we have is that the sole administrator, the only man there, wakes up in the morning, makes an announcement, and then that announcement is given effect with immediate effect.
But shouldn't that be the case because of the emergency rule? Because many people still expect, you are not supposed to appoint. You are supposed to do this. You are supposed to do that. But then,
ought not to be so. It ought not to be so in this case. Reasons being that in this place, assuming there are acts warranting declaration of state of emergency, the sole administrator wouldn't even have the time to be making appointments to perform project. What he would have been doing is to confront that has brought him to the state. But today, because there is orderliness, I don't know how to describe it. That is the reason the sole administrator is having the opportunity to make appointment to show that there is no breakdown of law and order in the state.
Okay. All right. Let's take a few calls now. 0817 923 0007 0817 923 0002. Again, 0817 923 0007 and 0817 923 0002. That is the number to call to be a part of the conversation. We'll start with Mufasa from NTA Road. Good morning, Mufasa.
Yeah, hi, Andrew. Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Yeah, good morning to the distinguished guest you have, the good barrister. Well, it was Chinua Achebe that said that when things fall apart, the center can no longer hold. That's paraphrasing him now. I quite agree with him to some extent when he said that currently Rivers State does not have, what could be seen as an organized, government in place. The only part I disagree with is the fact that we have a military rule. I do not see that as the man occupying the brick house as a military man because he has retired. For me, what happened in Rivers State was a civilian coup d'etat, where the president, displaced an elected government and imposed one of his associates to rule over Rivers State. And that alone would discourage for me to this to any kind of business, including what the NBA have done in your 20s. It's going to work because it's an unstable government. It will progress in error like this to suffer immense economic and all. So this is just the beginning, and it's quite unfortunate that this is happening. Imagine what Enugu State will benefit from this coming to Enugu State. And we see people exhibiting dangerous ignorance because of clash and self-interest. It's quite unfortunate.
All right, let's go to Leighton Barry in Bury. Good morning, Leighton.
I'm able to listen to your case, Kingsley, as I said. But my concern, the question I want to ask him this morning is that I hope he is aware that the judiciary he is talking about has been the one making controversial and multiple judgments in the state. I hope he's aware of that. And also, the agency comment that they are supposed to report to, or the MD is supposed to, are aware of all these on it. Now, the federal government has taken a step, as in, to cut corner or to cut away some of these controversial judgments made by different courts and implement emergency rule based on what was about to happen in River State and what has happened, what has persisted. And the federal government decided to take that step in order to harmonize the situation. If the appointment is not there, people will happen at the local government level. Like yesterday, I think the primary head, whatever, was in the studio. Lamenting the payments that are not being given to the health sector. Who will report that to the sole administrator? Will it be a spirit to be at all the AGAs to know all this? That is why when this man will make appointment, people will comment negatively. When he does not make appointment, people will comment negatively.
All right, Leighton Barry, thank you. I think your point made. Let's go to Mount 3. Good news. Good morning.
Good morning, my brother. Yes, I want to first of all ask a question before I continue. And that question is this, to the learned and barrister in the studio. Yes, we have seen that from all it is obvious that, according to President Jonathan, that they are pretending to sleep. They are not properly sleeping. So if you try to wake them, they will not wake. But the issue of coming to dissolving the reset, which is an arm of an independent body, duly constituted, even by the former governor that is making the fight, and screened by the legislatures that they removed, duly done, and they are independent on their own. Is it proper? That's one question. Let me assume that they want to do other things. Because from all we are saying that, the only thing for me that will change this is that, imagine the headline news, former Governor Peter Dele, Omen Celestino Meja, former Deputy Governor Atele Kuru, Senator John Mbata, former PDP chairman, all of them mobilizes all ward chairmen, local government chairmen to the streets. That's what I see that can stop this. That let me see how many times the police will look at Otele and shooting gun, or look at Mbata and shooting gun.
All right, let's go to JJ. JJ, good morning.
Andrew, good morning. Let me online. Andrew, remember the Warri crisis, right? And how we are turned Warri to today. Remember? Hello?
JJ, go on.
Good. Now, one right now is what is taking us back to that days. And it's not just in River State alone, but the entire South. I want to close your eyes and imagine how many lawyers would have been in River State. The hotel they would have stayed, Mama Put, Papa Put, and all the big restaurants, and the money, the economy, and all things that would have happened, all gone to Enugu. Maybe if it's oil activity would have gone to Lagos and all those put together. I have said it here and I'll repeat it. This idea is just to kill the South economy. Because now they have moved this one to Enugu. The next one, before you say that, it may be oil activity. They say, no, this place is not democratic. Let's move it to Lagos. So the president area benefit more for killing the South economy. It's not making any sense to me. So the people who have designed this thing, they have something in mind, and this is the purpose for which they have designed it.
All right.
So we are watching anyway.
Zion in GRA, good morning.
I think as for this time now, we are now rising up to speak. That is the interesting part of it. But where I find it very funny and hilarious is when the judiciary is now complaining. NBA was there. NGC was there. They saw when all these things were going on. And they were beclouded with the gifts that were given to them. The SUV they collected, the houses they collected, they could not speak. Can you see what evil can do? Now, it has affected them. You know, they are complaining now. Most of them from Port Harcourt now will find it very difficult to go to the school. That's why they are complaining. That is why they are complaining, nothing more. their hotel bills, their feeding, everything. They don't get money. Now then they speak out. When the judgments were coming, none of them stood up. When they saw the atrocity, none of them spoke. They were covered with the toga, a bencher for life, bencher. We were covered. See, until NJC and all of them join hands with Rivers people, petition the action the president took against Rivers State, which is his own interest, not in the interest of our democracy, not in the interest of our constitution. They stand up and say this is wrong. The case is in the Supreme Court. I stand to be corrected. 2 weeks ago we heard it. Have they given an accelerated hearing to that matter? Don't be surprised that the Supreme Court will still do the otherwise, because they are all whining and dining. They gave them building in Abuja. One of them rejected it. The gift of a man maketh way. Keep collecting gift. When the repercussion, stop coming here to complain to us.
All right, let's go to Nkoro now. Ida is on the line. Good morning, Ida.
Good morning. I want peace in Rivers State. I'm from Rivers State. Please, I want the lawyers to please stop complaining, to join hands together, to call the president that this state of emergency is illegal. Look at what is happening. Supreme Court said there is no more caretaker again, but we have caretaker local government chairman. We have appointees that governor appoints. This man come in, trying to separate parties, to call the two parties together. He starts dissolving all this. Look at this sec. Look at his 4 years tenure. But this one has dissolved it and put another person there. What is he looking for? Crisis in Rivers State. My brother, whatever thing they are looking for, God never give it to them.
All right, Ida, thank you very much. We'll take some messages now. This one says, good morning. Lexi from Port Harcourt, please help me ask the man speaking to us morning that when the governor stopped payment of salaries to the former assembly lawmakers, which court gave him such rights to do so? This is not good news for Rivers residents. Imagine the kind of business that would be forfeited and lost. I am quite sure that hotels must have been booked. I know in time to come, Rivers State would retaliate this gesture when we go to the ballot in 2027. This is very disheartening. Gifty from Genegua. I hope Senator Barrister Abbey and others that are clapping for declaration of emergency in the state are happy now. Clever Sonny sent in that message. This person says I'm trying to get more of this. Okay. My view, the NBA's failure to stand, live, and defend the credibility of the Constitution as it should be has led to where we are now in the state currently. If I were to be the hotel managers, I'll equally attach non-refundable to the payments. Okay, that's the much we can take. Beams, thank you. We'll take a very short commercial and then we have the world news come up later on. To stay with us, my name is Ifeemi Andrew. Jude will join in with Hello Port Harcourt. And you had listened to CHIOMA CHOKO, legal practitioner here in Rivers State, who would now have to pack his bag and move to Enugu for the conference. Good morning again. Stay with us.
Are you having problems listening to us via the Nigeria Info app? Experiencing any bugs?